Welcome back to another episode of Screen Tested. I am your host Tyrant, where we take things from movies, TV shows, pop culture, try to create them in the real world and test them one-on-one from the media that they come from. Now today's episode we are taking a look at our very first Star Trek weapon, the LIRPA. I'm not sure if that's how you say it. I'm pretty sure it is because that's how they say it in all the clips with an accent. So I'm not sure if it's LIRPA, LIRPA. I'm just going to say it with an accent in today's episode. It makes it easy and it makes sure that my pronunciation is correct. Anyway, this is a Vulcan dueling weapon, at least from the context that I understand. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Full disclosure, I was never a Star Trek guy. I was a Star Wars guy. It's okay, don't worry, we're all good here. I'm not going to hold that against it. Funnily enough, I think I actually really dig it. In terms of the design, I don't know about the functionality, we're going to get to that a little bit later, but in terms of just the design on its face, I kind of like it. So what I'm going to be doing is creating my own and then we'll put it to the test. So with all that out of the way, let's get started. A quick caveat that I should add with today's build is it's not going to be made out of steel. Originally, I was going to make it out of steel. I was going to use one of those blades for, edging, not edging, the internet term, edging the, your pathways and stuff. It has a similar sort of blade shape. They were out of stock, so I couldn't get it. So I'm going to make it out of aluminum and try and make it as close as possible to the original dimensions. So it still should be a good analog for today's testing, but there is that caveat that it isn't made out of steel, so the weight is something that I don't really think that I could comment too much on, specifically because if it was made out of like steel or whatever, it's probably, it's a little bit different, but we're going to be making it out of aluminum. Still should be perfectly valid for testing purposes, and especially drawing some conclusions on the wieldability and how you can move it, and perhaps even how it feels to cut some things. For the build project for the LIRPA, it is actually pretty easy. I was actually enjoying it a little bit more than usual because it harkens back to my prop making days. Anyway, I decided to use a flat piece of aluminum for the head. It's about 3 millimeters thick. I sketched out a design for the head and then cut it out with the angle grinder. After that, I used a wood handle for a rake as the haft. I cut that to length. I also cut a channel for the head to slot into, drilled some holes so that everything could be attached. Then to give the head, this is a prop making trick more than a proper realistic trick, but I gave the head 2 different polishes. This is to create some separation so that it looks like it has a bigger edge than it really does. That's just a little prop making trick, but I thought it would look good for this particular project. Then for the opposite side, for the big bulbous counterweight, I used a cake tin. Just an aluminum cake tin, stuffed it with aluminum foil and attached it. I don't really get to do these sorts of projects anymore, but it looks really good on camera and it should have some functionality. But with all that out of the way, let's get to some of the testing and some of the thoughts, because I'm excited for this one, first Star Trek project. Here we have the Star Trek LIRPA. Honestly, I think I like it. I think the design is kind of cool. I like looking at it. That doesn't mean it's practical and that doesn't mean it's functional, but I wanted to caveat it. I actually think, I don't know, there's something about it where I think it's really cool. So this is the first Star Trek weapon we have done on the channel. I've seen the Batleth comments. I have seen them. I've seen them. Now, the LIRPA is interesting because from what I can tell, this is actually very, very close to the original prop. I checked out some of the websites and the length of this, I believe it's 48 inches off the top of my head. That is the length of the screen used prop. So this is very, very close. Now this one here is made of aluminum, but I think it'll be fine for today. I'm not really testing how much of an edge it can hold, things like that. I just wanted to kind of talk about the concept and the design itself, because I think it's fascinating. There's a lot of stuff here, because this is a wacky sci-fi weapon. So, starting off with some of the detriments. It's very short, obviously. Because of the shape of this blade, this is I would call it almost an axe head, right? If we had a haft going this way or a handle going that way, it'd be an axe. But obviously, it's a bit more for thrusting. The problem is when I come down for things like this, I have to hit it right on these points. And then when it comes to actually using it, you have to slice across your target, which is actually quite difficult because of the way the head curves. Then we have this big counterweight, this big pommel bashing type thing. The problem with that is it means that the balance of this weapon would be kind of weird in terms of putting all your power into the cutting edge. Because you have this big counterweight here, it would be less effective. when you have something like a hammer or an axe or something where you want to put a whole bunch of force into it, you don't want a counterweight on it. So that's also very interesting. In terms of reach, we basically have none, zero reach. I mean, it feels like it's less than a sword unless you hold it down like this. But again, you have this big pommel in the way. Now, when it comes to actually using the pommel, because it's so short, again, when you hit things, this head is really close to you. If you do anything, the head is kind of, the cutting edge is very, very close to you. But the problem is if I come down here and I want to swing with it, the head hits you. So it's very funky, very wacky. Let's try and cut something very quickly because we can, it's there, and so it can puncture things, it can hurt things, right? But hitting it right on that angle seems to be the best sort of bet to kind of get with it. Now, how would you use this thing? That's where I have some interesting thoughts, because thrusting with it, right? You're not going to do much damage. It shares too much surface area. When you thrust something, you kind of want it to be at least pointy. This is not pointy. So would you slash with it? When you actually hit something, you're not going to be hitting through your target medium. So if I was to hit here, the problem is I'd be hitting with the haft. If I hit, you have to sweet spot it. For a weapon like this, that's kind of difficult. See, that was a perfect hit, but I didn't get all the way through. So let's try that again. See if I can actually cut through something. It's surface level. Cutting actually through a target, very, very difficult. See if I can get it right on the axe. So right there. Somewhat of a clean cut, but that was basically me going, all right, I need to get it right there. So how would you use the LIRPA? Well, thrusting, all right. I've got I am standing not very far away from Tony and I've run out of reach unless I extend. So thrusting with it, not particularly the best, especially if somebody has even a long sword. They would be able to snipe my hands all over this thing. So, all right, what about pommel bashing? I mean, that's more for close quarters stuff. So what about slashing? Yeah, we can slash, we can bring it around, bring it down to one hand maybe. That's very staffy. I don't feel like it's long enough to be used like a staff. The LIRPA, kind of shit. However, I feel like there's a caveat here. So, all right, let's just summarize everything before we move on. There's no reach. I have no reach like this unless I'm using it as a one-handed weapon. Problem is, if I'm using a one-handed weapon, these are steel, much heavier, unrealistic. In terms of a thrusting weapon, well, the edge that I'm thrusting with is not really conducive for thrusting. How about for slashing? Well, you can kind of get some slashing capabilities off it, right? I mean, it's not impossible. I wouldn't want to do it though. So hitting on these right-angled points, that seems like, hey, that'll f you up, that'll do some damage, right? What would be the context that I would want to use something like this? Well, the answer is kind of what we see, as like a dueling weapon. As like an actual weapon that I would want to use, no, I think it's kind of not very good. In terms of a weapon specifically for like a duel, right? Two people, they both have this. I think that would be fascinating. I think it would be awesome as to watch, because you have a lot of detriments. You would have to watch people kind of, you know, they both have the same sort of reach, they both have the same sort of stuff going on, they kind of have to use the weapons in the same sort of way, they can both pommel bash, they have to come in to actually get some slashes on each other. There's a lot of really, in like a gladiatorial thing, two combatants using this, I think that'd be f***ing awesome actually. I think that'd be cool as. very entertaining. And that's where I think kind of the positive of this thing is. As a functional weapon, as a functional item, would I ever pick it or choose it? No. No. As a weapon wholesale, would I throw it out? No, of course not. I mean, it's still a weapon at the end of the day. Now, I'm one-handing it. Obviously, if it's steel, you wouldn't be able to do that. But yeah, I think that kind of summarizes all my thoughts on the LIRPA. I don't have any strong opinions either way. I don't think it's very good, specifically this one, right? This one is very close to the original one, like the 48-inch version. So I don't think this one is the best. And this thing would definitely get absolutely like wrecked against a spear, a polearm, anything that has longer reach than this. I mean, hell, even a normal sword, I reckon, would probably do pretty well against it, simply because you can snipe the hands very easily. And using it down like this to get that extra reach, you can have a bit of extra reach, but you don't have that leverage. Two-handing it, you have this big bulbous bit right in the way that kind of makes it difficult to get any proper range of motion on it. So I don't think I want to give this one a tit score. I just don't think there's enough here to be really rating on. However, in an upcoming ranking episode, another tier list episode, I will definitely be adding it, of course. Funnily enough, I like this. I like looking at it, and when I look at it, I go, that's kind of groovy. But that is going to be all for today's episode, guys. I genuinely hope you enjoyed. Remember to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below what you thought of today's episode. Something light, something fun and easy. First Star Trek episode. Remember, you can become a channel member and help support all this sort of content. I really appreciate it. The links will be down below. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, guys. And as always, I'll see you in another episode next week. Have a good one.